So the original, I can only imagine, the film was critically, commercially a success.
Yeah.
But when did you as a creative feel kind of called to make a sequel?
Oh, Brett, I was resistant for a while. I dug my feet in and said absolutely not. Because the first one was so special and was such a special experience for everybody that I just didn't want to mess it up. And I just want to say, and I just kept telling everybody, because I mean, once the first one was released, in those first couple years, we got pitched a TV series, a sitcom, and a Broadway play based on I Can Only Imagine. And every single one of them, I was like, no, this feels like a gimmick. I'm sorry. First of all, I don't even know where to start with a Broadway play. And so I had kind of resisted. So then they were talking about, is there a sequel? And I was like, I don't want to go back unless there's a reason. But a couple years ago, Cindy Bond, who's the original producer, just said, could I have one last shot to let you hear this story? And so Brent McCorkle, who co-directed the film with me, and Cindy sat down with Bart, and they pitched me this story. And they said, do you know what happened to Bart after I Can Only Imagine, when his world fell apart in 2004? And I said, no, I don't know the story. And they walked me through the story and the idea of what happens if your happily ever after falls apart. What happens when life gets hard after you get your dreams. And where's God in the fire? And, you know, in those fires in life, is God still in it with you, and is it beautiful? And so as they walk through it, and then the fatherhood themes of Bart now as a dad with a son who's got health issues and is really struggling, and him trying to give his son something he never had. And as they walk through it, and it ends up connecting with this song, Even If, that is an iconic piece of music that we get to bring to life at Red Rocks in this movie. But when they got to the end of it, I was in tears. And they said, it's kind of like the spiritual sequel to I Can Only Imagine. I was like, no, that's the actual sequel. We can make that tomorrow. And I told Brent, I said, if you want to do this solo, then I will produce it for you. But if you want, I would really love to co-direct that with you. And so we stepped in and finished the script together and made a movie that I'm really proud of. But I was a late adopter, but I'm so glad that they convinced me, because it's one of the favorite things I've ever been a part of.
That's great. Well, I think it's a credit to the original film that it tells a complete emotional arc. You feel like it's a whole story.
Right.
And so is this one as well. So you mentioned co-directing with Brent McCorkle. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding it right, he wrote some of the script on the first one and this one. Tell us a little bit about the process of co-directing and maybe some of the surprising benefits of sharing the director's chair.
Yeah. I love collaborating. I love sharing ideas, and then it's just like, you know, if I don't collaborate, then the best version of the movie is just the one that's in my head, and that's boring because it's, you know, there's no room for discovery or to be surprised. I love it when two strong individuals can choose each other and make something in this beautiful, messy compromise. And Brent's one of my favorite filmmakers on the planet, and so he did a movie called Unconditional that I saw 15 years ago and loved. Reached out to him on Facebook, said I'm a fan, and then he edited Woodlawn with me. Then he wrote I Can Only Imagine with my brother and was our second unit director and edited that one with me. And then he co-directed Jesus Revolution with John, with my brother. And so he's an incredibly talented director. And, you know, on this one, we could have each done it solo. And his version of this movie by himself would have been great. Mine would have been great. But together, I think it's special. And so we just have a best idea wins policy, friction with respect. The idea that we just share ideas, and in the moment, whichever one is the best idea is the one that usually wins out. And we kind of surrender our ideas to each other. And there's things that have his fingerprints on this movie, and there's things that have mine. But Brent, it kind of spoils you as a co-director because he's incredibly generous. And his voice is just crystal clear. And if you love Jesus Revolution and love the first I Can Only Imagine, you're going to love this.
That's excellent. So when you were sold, when you got to that point where you were sold on a sequel, what were some of the things in the story that you just really latched onto and you're like, I'm excited to put that to film?
Yeah, there was several. You know, I think the thing I was really the most excited about, the two biggest things and then one visual thing, is the idea to complete Bart's journey with the fatherhood themes. You know, the first one really completed everything that he needed as a son towards his father. This one flips it on its head as the things and the components he needs as a father towards his son. And part of that was there's parts of that Arthur relationship that still needed to heal. And so we had to go back into memory and kind of mine some things, which was awesome to be back on set with Dennis Quaid 8 years later. The other thing was this new character of Tim Timmons, to introduce him as this spiritual guide and buddy character for Bart that Milo Ventimiglia plays beautifully. And this is a guy, Tim is a guy that we've all known behind the scenes for a long time, but was the writer of the song Even If, that the end of the movie kind of ends with, and so wrote that song with Bart. And when we found out that his story was kind of the main kind of driving engine to helping Bart discover this healing and gratitude, I was thrilled for audiences to meet Tim Timmons, because his life has something to say. He's got a book coming out that's amazing too, and like Tim's a great human being, loves the Lord. And then the third thing that I was really excited about was visually to be able to end the movie at Red Rocks, because we're like, if we're going to finish this movie, it's got to feel bigger at the end than the first. Mm-hmm. It's got to stand on its own. And what's an iconic venue that would do that justice? And we said Red Rocks. And so we wrote it into the script. Everybody said it was impossible. It's booked for 2 years in advance. And at the last minute, they had a date open up during our filming window. MercyMe booked it, and we did a combination concert movie shoot. Mm-hmm. So we had 8,500 extras at Red Rocks. We had 3 hours to film the sequence. We shot with 6 cameras and a drone, and absolutely stuck the landing. It reminded me of the scene in Interstellar where they're having to sync up to the space station that's spinning, and Anne Hathaway says that's impossible, and Matthew McConaughey says no, that's necessary. That was the moment for us, and it was amazing.
That's incredible. And speaking to the scene, it is spectacular to look at, just visually. It just blows you away.
Thank you.
You touched on it a little bit, but talking about finding people to play the character of Tim Timmons. Yeah. We talked to Sammy Dell a little bit earlier.
Yep.
He's coming in to as a newcomer, but plays a very, very pivotal role.
Right.
How did you go about finding the right people to embody these people that you know so well?
Yeah, it's always interesting, because it's like you're stepping into this multiverse where it's versions of those people, and you're trying to find somebody that can do it justice. Tim was one where we had looked at several individuals, and you always end up with the person that somehow was always destined to play the role. And once that happens, you're like, why did I ever consider anybody else? Yeah. But, for Tim, when we met Milo, and Milo's had an incredible career. I mean, to be on one iconic franchise is one thing, but to be on 3 between This Is Us, Gilmore Girls, and Heroes is impressive. And then on top of that, his film body of work. I mean, he's literally a Balboa as Rocky's son, and he's got a great body of work. So when he expressed interest and we met, the first Zoom where we talked with each other, he brought such integrity to saying, I love Tim Timmons and his voice, and I want to do it justice. And that was so cool. And so down to the fact that he shaved his head and grew out a beard, and shaving Milo Ventimiglia's head was one of the more stressful days of my life. Yes, the studio was nervous, but fortunately he's good looking with no hair or hair, so he's fine. But he absolutely committed to the role, learned guitar, learned to sing, just all those things. And so that was exciting. And then finding a fresh face like Sammy Dell, we went through hundreds of auditions, and Sammy was the guy that had the spirit that as a dad you want to fight for. Yeah. And then bringing new faces like Ariel Kebbel as Hillary, Tim's wife. She's amazing. And then Sophie Skelton from Outlander taking over the role of Shannon, because we're jumping in the future a bit, and we kind of matured the character some. And Sophie didn't skip a beat with the character, and so really, really proud of her. So top to bottom. And then bringing back the originals like Trace Adkins and Dennis Quaid, and it was just one of those magical moments I never thought we'd get to repeat again. And so for fans of the original, it's going to complete it in a way that your mind's going to be blown. For those that haven't seen the first movie, it stands on its own, and I'm excited for people to see it.
That's great. I am too. Thank you so much, Andy, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Always great to talk to you, Brett.